Welcome back to our channel, your premier destination for the most comprehensive and captivating updates on the bold and the beautiful. Today is a spectacular day to dive deep into the intricate web of drama, betrayal, and corporate warfare unfolding in Los Angeles. We have an explosive development to unpack, one that will forever alter the landscape of two legacy families. Let's begin. The atmosphere within the glittering, glass-walled corridors of Forrester Creations has never been more toxic, suffocating beneath the weight of unchecked executive hubris and generations of unresolved familial resentment. At the absolute center of this corporate maelstrom is Hope Logan Spencer, a woman who has been pushed far beyond her emotional and professional limits. For years, Hope operated as the moral compass of her family, a beacon of forgiveness and gentle diplomacy in a world dominated by ruthless ambition. However, the relentless, condescending tyranny of Steffi Forrester Finnegan has systematically stripped away Hope's patience, leaving behind a radicalized, desperate, and fiercely vindictive woman. Steffi's unilateral decision to pause the Hope for the Future line once again, prioritizing Eric Forster's couture while openly mocking Hope's frustrations with a chilling challenge, has ignited a fire within the Logan camp that threatens to burn the entire fashion empire to the ground. Hope has already set a massive corporate coup into motion, actively pushing her mother, Brooke Logan Forrester, to launch a hostile takeover for Steffi's co-CEO seat. Hope envisions a future where Brooke's ascension to power will serve as the ultimate salvation for her stalled fashion line, effectively neutralizing Steffi's authority. However, Hope is acutely aware that relying solely on Brooke's ability to persuade Ridge Forrester is a massive gamble. Ridge has historically vacillated between his loyalty to his wife and his protective instincts toward his daughter. Knowing that Ridge might hesitate to dethrone Steffi, Hope realizes she needs a secondary, far more insidious strategy. She needs to remove Steffi from the board entirely, not just through a boardroom vote, but by orchestrating a voluntary, catastrophic surrender. To achieve this unprecedented victory, Hope makes the chilling decision to target Steffi's most vulnerable and fiercely protected sanctuary, her marriage to Dr. John Finnegan. The decision to approach Finn marks a profound and terrifying evolution in Hope's character. She is no longer just fighting a corporate battle. She is engaging in psychological warfare. Hope meticulously crafts a narrative designed to exploit Finn's deeply ingrained medical instincts, his profound empathy, and his unconditional love for his wife. She knows that Finn has watched Steffi navigate immense stress in the past, and she plans to weaponize that history to her advantage. As Hope prepares for this fateful encounter, she rehearses her lines, perfecting a mask of profound, empathetic sorrow. She intends to present herself not as a bitter corporate rival seeking vengeance, but as a deeply concerned extended family member who is terrified for Steffi's well-being. This calculated manipulation highlights just how far Hope has fallen from her once pristine pedestal, demonstrating a willingness to cross the most sacred of boundaries to achieve her political goals. When Hope finally arrives to meet with Finn, the contrast between their two worlds is stark and immediately palpable. Finn, operating in an environment dedicated to healing, preservation, and truth, welcomes Hope with the polite, guarded warmth he has always extended to the Logan family. He is completely unaware that the woman sitting across from him has arrived with the express purpose of dismantling his wife's life. Hope begins her performance with a masterful display of hesitation, lowering her voice to a soft, trembling whisper. She tells Finn that she is coming to him because she has nowhere else to turn, framing her visit as an act of desperate compassion. She looks directly into Finn's eyes and begins to weave a terrifyingly plausible narrative about Steffi's mental state, suggesting that the pressure of running Forrester Creations has finally caused a dangerous psychological fracture. Hope paints a vivid, disturbing picture of Steffi's recent behavior at the office. She describes Steffi as manic, obsessively controlling, and entirely disconnected from reality. Hope insists that Steffi's relentless attacks on the Logan family, her sudden decision to shelve the hope for the future line, and her dictatorial treatment of the staff are not the actions of a sound executive, but the symptoms of a woman spiraling into a deep psychological crisis. She preys on Finn's protective nature, suggesting that Steffi's obsession with corporate dominance is blinding her to the things that truly matter, subtly implying that this toxic obsession is actively endangering their marriage and their children's stability. Hope's delivery is flawless, dripping with a manufactured sincerity that is designed to bypass Finn's defenses and plant a seed of terrifying doubt in his mind. As Finn listens, a complex array of emotions washes over his face. Initially, his medical training kicks in. He is conditioned to listen to expressions of concern regarding mental health. For a fleeting moment, he considers the immense pressure Steffi has been under, managing the legacy of Era Forster while navigating the endless family dramas that plague their lives. Hope senses this momentary hesitation and moves in for the kill, delivering her ultimate, poisoned proposal. She tells Finn that Steffi needs immediate, intensive psychological treatment, far away from the toxic environment of Forster Creations. She urges Finn to use his influence as her husband to convince Steffi to step down from her co-CEO position indefinitely. And then, with breathtaking audacity, Hope offers the solution. She promises that Brooke Logan will step into the leadership void, ensuring that the company remains stable and profitable until Steffi is well enough to return. It is in this precise moment, as the name Brooke Logan hangs in the air, that the illusion shatters. Finn is a man of science, a man trained to observe symptoms, diagnose underlying conditions, and see through the surface to the truth beneath. As he processes Hope's words, the cognitive dissonance between her gentle tone and her highly specific, politically advantageous solution becomes blindingly obvious. He looks past the manufactured tears in Hope's eyes and sees the cold, calculating, ruthless ambition staring back at him. The pieces of the puzzle violently snap together in his mind. He is well aware of the escalating tensions at the office. He knows that Hope's fashion line has been paused, and he knows that Brooke is currently engaged in a massive power play to usurp Steffi's authority. The realization hits Finn with the force of a physical blow. This is not an intervention. This is a corporate assassination attempt, and Hope is trying to use him as the murder weapon. The transformation in Finn is instantaneous and awe-inspiring. The empathetic, welcoming doctor vanishes, replaced by a fiercely protective husband who has just realized an enemy has breached his gates. He holds up a hand, cutting Hope off mid-sentence. The silence that follows is deafening, heavy with the weight of an impending explosion. When Finn finally speaks, his voice is dangerously low, completely devoid of the warmth he had offered her just moments before. He meticulously and ruthlessly dismantles Hope's entire narrative. He tells her that he sees exactly what she is doing, exposing her faux concern as a desperate, transparent political maneuver. He points out the sheer, unadulterated hypocrisy of her actions, condemning her for daring to weaponize mental health and the sanctity of his marriage simply because she is losing a battle over a fashion line. Finn does not hold back. He looks at Hope and tells her that the gentle, moral woman she once pretended to be is completely gone, replaced by a radicalized manipulator who is no better than the worst villains in their family's history. He defends Steffi's sanity, her brilliance, and her absolute right to lead Forster Creations, making it abundantly clear that Steffi's executive decisions, whether Hope likes them or not, are the actions of a strong, capable CEO, not a woman suffering a psychological break. Finn's words are precise, cutting, and entirely devastating. He exposes the ugly truth of Hope's agenda, stripping away her self-righteous facade and forcing her to confront the horrific reality of what she has just attempted to do. He tells her that suggesting a wife be institutionalized so a rival family can steal her company is a line that can never, ever be uncrossed. Cornered, exposed, and stripped of her moral high ground, Hope's defensive facade completely collapses. The gentle, concerned demeanor evaporates, replaced by a raw, vindictive, and explosive fury. Hope lashes out, her voice rising as she screams about the injustices she has suffered at Steffi's hands. She justifies her actions, claiming that Steffi's relentless bullying and condescension left her with no other choice. She argues that Steffi has been trying to destroy the Logans for years, and that this hostile takeover is merely a necessary act of survival. Hope attempts to shift the blame, insisting that Steffi's toxic leadership is the real disease infecting their family, and that Brooke is the only cure. But her desperate justifications only serve to further disgust Finn, who watches in horror as the true depth of Hope's radicalization is laid bare. The confrontation rapidly escalates into a screaming match, a brutal clash of ideologies and loyalties that shakes the very foundation of their intertwined histories. Finn stands as an immovable fortress, an absolute defender of his wife against a Logan family that he now views as a genuine existential threat. He tells Hope that her actions today have proven every single negative thing Steffi has ever said about her. He completely rejects her justifications, stating that no amount of corporate frustration gives anyone the right to manipulate a husband into destroying his own wife. The argument reaches a fever pitch, with years of unspoken tension and underlying resentment boiling over into a catastrophic verbal assault. Hope realizes that she has not only failed to recruit Finn, but she has inadvertently armed Steffi with the ultimate proof of the Logan's treachery. With the air between them toxic and unbreathable, Finn delivers his final, devastating verdict. He orders Hope to leave his presence and never attempt to speak to him about his wife again. He looks her dead in the eye and tells her that whatever fragile peace existed between the Logans and the Finnegans is now permanently, irreparably shattered. He declares total war, assuring Hope that he will stand by Steffi's side and fight the Logans with every ounce of strength he possesses. He promises that Steffi will hear every single word of this conversation, and that Brooke's attempt to steal the co-CEO's seat will be met with a resistance so fierce it will tear Forrester Creations apart. Finn's dismissal is absolute, a cold, unyielding banishment that leaves no room for future apologies or reconciliation. As Hope turns and walks away, the sheer magnitude of what she has just done settles heavily upon her shoulders. She came to this meeting seeking a shortcut to victory, hoping to manipulate a good man into doing her dirty work. Instead, she has ignited a powder keg that will blow the entire family dynamic to pieces. There is no turning back now. The lines have been drawn in the sand, not just with ink, but with fire. Hope has fully embraced her dark side, accepting that if she wants to win this war against Steffi, she must be willing to burn every bridge, betray every friendship, and destroy anyone who stands in her way. She leaves the encounter not with regret, but with a hardened, terrifying resolve to see Brooke seated on the Forrester throne, no matter the collateral damage. Meanwhile, Finn is left standing in the aftermath of the confrontation, his heart pounding with a mixture of rage and profound clarity. His protective instincts are fully activated. He realizes that Steffi is currently sitting in her office, completely unaware of the sheer magnitude of the conspiracy forming against her. He knows about Carter Walton's prophetic warnings regarding the consequences of Steffi's decisions, but he now understands that the threat is not just corporate. It is deeply personal and viciously psychological. Finn knows he must immediately go to his wife, not to convince her to step down, but to arm her for the brutal battle ahead. He must tell her that Hope Logan has crossed the ultimate line, and that the war for Forrester Creations has just escalated into a fight for their family's very survival. The fallout from this explosive encounter will send massive, uncontrollable shockwaves through the entire canvas of Los Angeles. When Steffi learns that Hope attempted to use her marriage and her mental health as weapons in a corporate coup, her reaction will be nothing short of volcanic. The fury that Steffi exhibited when Ridge merely hinted at Brooke's ambitions will pale in comparison to the wrath she will unleash upon learning of Hope's psychological warfare. This revelation will completely validate Steffi's deepest paranoias about the Logan family, cementing her belief that they are insidious manipulators who will stop at nothing to steal the Forrester legacy. Steffi will undoubtedly use this information to force Ridge into an impossible corner, demanding that he choose between a daughter who is fiercely defending her company and a wife whose daughter just attempted to destroy her marriage. But Hope's actions have proven that the cycle of toxicity is inescapable, deeply embedded in their DNA. This is no longer just a rivalry over fashion lines or office space. It is a blood feud characterized by ruthless emotional manipulation and a complete disregard for basic human decency. The permanent fracture between the Logans and the Finnegans sets the stage for a new era of the bold and the beautiful, one where the battles are fought not just in the boardroom, but in the deepest, most vulnerable corners of the human psyche. As the dust settles on this catastrophic argument, the future of Forrester Creations hangs precariously in the balance. Brooke's power play, initially seen by Hope as a righteous crusade, is now tainted by the horrific tactics used to support it. When Liam, Bill, and Katie learn of the extreme measures Hope has taken, it will undoubtedly cause massive fractures within the Logan camp itself, as they are forced to confront the monster their golden girl has become. The stage is set for a corporate and familial war of unprecedented scale, a battle where every secret, every vulnerability, and every relationship will be weaponized. The days of polite corporate maneuvering are over. Total war has arrived, and the casualties will be devastating. Well, Spencer has always been a man defined by the heavy legacy of his formidable surname. But beneath the billion-dollar armor beats a heart that is currently being torn into a million jagged pieces. The profound, undeniable truth that has been haunting him in the quiet hours of the night is his enduring, inescapable love for Electra Forrester. Despite the chaotic interference from Ivy Forrester, the manipulative letters that were hidden, and the orchestrated misunderstandings that drove a painful wedge between them, Will's soul remains irrevocably tethered to Electra. Every time he closes his eyes, he sees her face, the ghost of a brilliant future they were supposed to share. He recognizes with absolute clarity that his feelings for her are not just lingering. They are as deep, as passionate, and as potent as the day he first realized he was in love with her. Yet, love in Los Angeles is rarely a straightforward path, and Will finds himself standing at the edge of a terrifying precipice, looking down at a situation that demanded a sacrifice he never thought he would have to make. The profound tragedy of Will's situation is compounded by the sheer purity of his intentions. He is a Spencer, carrying the weight of a ruthless empire, but he possesses a moral compass that often puts him at odds with the cutthroat tactics of his father, Bill Spencer. Will desperately wants to run to Electra, to take her in his arms, and to shatter the illusions and lies that have kept them apart for so long. He wants to explain that the distance between them was manufactured by malicious outside forces, specifically the unrepentant, cold-blooded scheming of her Aunt Ivy. However, the universe has a cruel way of testing the nobility of its heroes, and Will's ultimate test comes in the fragile, terrified form of Melissa Dillon. Melissa is not just a passing acquaintance caught in the crossfire. She is a woman drowning in a sea of absolute terror, and Will is the only one who can see the dark water rising above her head. Melissa Dillon's life has rapidly deteriorated into a waking nightmare, a suffocating reality dictated entirely by the sinister presence of Remy Price. Remy, the man who once seemingly helped her secure a respectable job as an art teacher in her past, has returned not as a friend, but as a terrifying, relentless extortionist. The blackmail he holds over her head is a dark, heavy cloud that threatens to destroy everything she has painstakingly built, including her promising new position as Daphne Walton's assistant at Forrester Creations. Melissa is paralyzed by an all-consuming fear, haunted by disguised phone calls and the constant, creeping dread that her entire world is about to violently collapse around her. Will, possessing a hyper-awareness of the vulnerable, sees the raw, nauseating panic in Melissa's eyes. He knows that she is cornered, trapped by a predator who will not stop until he has consumed her entirely and left nothing but ruins. The stark contrast between Will's deep romantic yearning for Elektra and his fierce, unwavering protective instinct over Melissa creates a brutal psychological battlefield within his mind. He knows that if he abandons Melissa to selfishly pursue his own happiness with Elektra, Melissa will be utterly destroyed by Remy's dark machinations. She lacks the financial resources, the legal power, and the sheer intimidating presence required to fight off a blackmailer of Remy's sinister caliber. Will understands the brutal, uncompromising reality of the world they live in. Immense wealth and a powerful, feared name are the ultimate shields against the monsters that lurk in the shadows. This devastating realization begins to plant the seeds of a desperate, life-altering plan in Will's mind, a plan born not of romance or desire, but of a tragic, overwhelming sense of duty and sacrifice. Meanwhile, this delicate situation is being aggressively manipulated by R.J. Forrester, a man who has triumphantly appointed himself as Elektra's absolute, unquestioned protector. R.J.'s obsession with Elektra has morphed into a coercive, strategic campaign to isolate her from Will completely. R.J. does not just want to win Elektra's heart. He wants to eradicate Will Spencer from her life entirely, erasing him from her memory. R.J. masterfully uses the prestigious Forrester name, his elevated position within the company, and his father Ridge's significant influence to build an impenetrable fortress around Elektra. He publicly and loudly declares his protection over her, painting himself as the noble, steadfast savior, while subtly casting Will as the chaotic, unreliable element that brings nothing but pain and instability. R.J.'s public declarations are not just expressions of affection. They are highly calculated acts of psychological warfare designed to cement his territory and assert his dominance. R.J.'s manipulative strategy is brutally, terrifyingly effective. By constantly hovering over Elektra, whispering comforting lies in her ear, and framing every single one of Will's actions in the worst possible light, R.J. manages to completely blind Elektra to the true threats operating in their orbit. Elektra, emotionally vulnerable and completely overwhelmed by the recent, shocking revelations of her Aunt Ivy's betrayal, leans heavily on R.J.'s seemingly unwavering support. She is completely unaware of the dark underbelly of R.J.'s protection, the sickening way he is actively exploiting Melissa Dillon's deep fear of homelessness to force her to sabotage any potential reunion between Elektra and Will. R.J. is playing a masterfully wicked game of emotional chess, moving the human pawns with cold precision to ensure that Will is left with absolutely no viable path back to the woman he truly loves. Watching R.J. proudly parade his pseudo-heroism while Melissa Dillon slowly crumbles under the crushing weight of Remy's extortion pushes Will to his absolute breaking point. He realizes with a sinking heart that a conventional approach will simply not work in this twisted scenario. He cannot simply fight R.J. for Elektra's affections while Melissa is being mercilessly thrown to the wolves. Will needs a nuclear option, a move so definitive, so legally binding, and so overwhelmingly powerful that it instantly neutralizes Remy's threat against Melissa. The Spencer name carries a weight that very few in the world dare to challenge. It represents billions of dollars in liquid assets, an army of ruthless, bloodthirsty lawyers, and a legacy of absolute destruction for anyone who dares to cross them. Will knows that the only way to extend this impenetrable titanium shield over Melissa is to make her Spencer. The decision to propose to Melissa Dillon is perhaps the most agonizing, self-destructive choice Will Spencer has ever made in his entire life. It is a willing sacrifice of his own soul, a deliberate surrender of his future happiness with Elektra, all done to save a woman who is actively drowning in fear. The scene of the proposal is entirely devoid of the typical romantic fanfare one would expect. There are no cascading rose petals, no sweeping orchestral music, no tears of joyous disbelief shining in the moonlight. Instead, It is a solemn, incredibly heavy moment shrouded in the grim, terrifying reality of their circumstances. Will approaches Melissa not as a passionate lover, but as a resolute, grim protector offering a desperate lifeline. He explains the brutal, cold logic of his plan. As his legally wedded wife, she will be completely untouchable. Remy Price would have to go through the entire